Whew, I gotta catch my breath. What did I title this thing? Mountain Men, Lone Wolves, and Marauders. I was watching an older video that Canadian Prepper did, and I can't remember the title, but in the discussion was Lone Wolves, the Lone Wolf concept. The guy's out there with all his gear at his back, and he's making it, all by himself during the SHTF. And we've all discussed that back and forth, the pros and cons. I tend to lean towards community, lone wolf kind of stuff. That's last resort. That goes with bug out and all that. The Sly Tiger was talking a couple videos back about mountain men and that type of lifestyle, and brought up some good points there that I got to thinking. I'm going to do a video eventually on the bug out deal. And I was doing some reading up on that, just a little bit of research. But anyhow, while I'm digging around in these books, I'm going to show you this here. This goes back to what Canadian and Sly Tiger were talking about, or made me think of. This is about half my collection here. I'm not trying to brag, I'm not boasting because I read a book or something. But these are about trapping, these are about living in the wilderness, these are about people that have been there and did that, Mountain Man Journal. Journal of this guy, journal of that guy, historians talking about an era, that kind of thing, and it's always interested me. So I read a ton of this stuff. Like, this is like half the books I have just on this type of topic. And there's one thing you'll find when you read about this stuff. There's two themes. I mean, there's a lot of themes, but there's two themes that pertain to us. Most of our perception today of the mountain man. You have the mountain man, you have the long hunter, and you have the frontiersman. Different era. They're like 100 years apart. They're doing the same thing. They're out in the sticks. They got a job to do. They're staying alive and all this. But a typical perception we have of the mountain man, I'll call everybody mountain man from this point forward, is that there are these very sturdy, wild kind of men. They're, lone mavericks, independent. And they're out there, living on the edge. And we get this picture. You never picture a group of mountain men. When I talk about mountain men, too, we're talking about the fur trade. So I get most of this information. Guys that were chasing the beaver down and all that. Mostly Civil War, 1850 or in there and on. So you got the fur trade, and you got this idea of these lone guys that got their horse, a couple of mules, and they're out there with some beef jerky and their smoke pole, and they mess with traps and make a living. And that's really not true. They're very independent, very sturdy. Yeah, they could survive on their own, but these guys traveled in groups. Okay. There's plenty of stories about mountain men that something happened to them while they were alone. They rarely put themselves in a position where they were alone. They would go out in groups of 20, 50, 60, 70 men, go out as teams, set up camp, and they were all contracted by a bigger company. So they go out as teams, set up camp. There's some guys that would handle the camp and the cooking. These other guys would go out in groups of 6 or 8 men out into the wilds, hunting game, trapping beaver, and the furs, the pelts, and all this stuff. But they never really left their squads or the major group until they're out doing their work. But they never broke down into very small groups unless they were overrun, attacked, got lost. My guy might have been kicked out of the group, so he had to go it alone. But this was not something that they typically wanted. It's not a position they wanted to put themselves in. They were rarely alone because they were pretty much an uncharted land in a hostile territory. Most of the Indians didn't want them. Some did. They had relationships with some, but for the most part, these guys were outsiders. And so I'm trying to think of some stories offhand. But typically, you hear a story about this one lone, mountain man. He either got kicked out of a group, or he left a group, or his group got killed. Now he's heading back to society. He's heading back to town, getting back to Missouri or doing whatever he's got to do, or maybe to a friendly group of natives that he's hooked up with before. Some of them never made it that far. They were just stuck out there alone. But if they came across hostiles, a grizzly bear, or something else, they were done in. Others lived to tell the tale and write the book. But the concept I tried to arrive home is the lone wolf concept is very similar to what this mountain man kind of concept, you know, the thing where I'm just going to run off into the woods, and even this falls into the bug out thing too. I'm just going to run off into the woods and make it on my own. These guys were far superior at that stuff, okay, and they were dealing with a hostile environment. They didn't do it alone. Okay, I'm trying to think if I got a book in there. Where is it? Maybe at the bottom of the stack. There's a guy in here that actually he hooked up with a group, left them because they were jerks, found another group, got kicked out of that one, then went it alone, then quit, then became governor of California. Pretty good story. A lot of these guys went on to be very proud. You know, there are all these mountain men with bearded, you know, wild guys. A lot of them went on to politics. A lot of them went into stuff you just can't picture. But they went on to, you know, prosperity in that. But anyhow, the lone wolf concept, if that's your primary goal, hey, I'm going to go out there and make it alone, really not advised. History proves against it. And sometimes if you have some lone wolf type hero that you looked at, make sure you look at their whole picture. A lot of times they're running from one pack trying to head to another. You know, the lone wolf, I said the lone wolf is just a lost pup looking for a pack to hook up with. You know, people are in transition. You might have that lone thing going on while you're in transition. But someone who, if you think that's your plan, the lone wolf thing, it just, you know, history proves that doesn't fly. Unless you're forced into that position, and that's going to be tough. Everyone dies around you, you get kicked out, you leave your group, whatever reason. Going it alone is just not good. And so I've just put, that was a common misconception about the mountain men, that they were alone. Typically they were with a whole bunch of other guys. They traveled in packs because there was strength in numbers, and they could by helping each other, they were able to multiply their efforts as far as bringing the beaver back to rendezvous. You know, it was a better money operation. They could do more work when they knew two guys were back, you know, armed, watching everything, while they were worried about, you know, bringing in the beaver and all that stuff. So it was just a really good system, a good mix. Okay. The other aspect of this, I think I'm missing something. If you look at you've got the mountain men. Now this could be debated, whatever. The mountain men were basically opportunists. Okay, they had an opportunity to go out into the wilderness and make a living and, you know, live a romantic kind of life, that kind of thing. But they were outsiders in that land. Okay. Now you got the French-Indian connection. I don't want to get into that. A lot of trappers there. They were actually out there first. But the mountain men cruising out west were basically intruders on the land of these other people. I see we could debate that whole thing. I'm not into that. But if you put yourself in the shoes of, let's just call it the Indian, as he saw these invaders coming in, wanting to take advantage of their resources, you know, this outside group coming in to take advantage of the resources. And they saw them coming in numbers. Okay? And so, in their eyes, this group was marauders. This group was coming into their land, taking this kind of thing. Now, some had relationships, some had where they worked this kind of thing out, whatever. That's all fine. There's a whole different dynamic when you get inside the Native American side of it. But if you look at that, you know, in the future, you might be the Indian tribe with some outside group coming in to take advantage of your resources, and you're not going to fear the lone wolf. It's the bigger group. Just a different perspective as far as I'm looking at the mountain man here, as far as being, you know, we see him as these, you know, interesting characters. They didn't think the same thing. This was their marauders. But I just want to point out how the mountain men did not travel alone. They worked in groups. And if we are ever in a similar situation, we do not need to be traveling alone. We need to work in groups, whether it's for good or bad. It's the lone wolf thing just doesn't, I don't think cuts it for long term. You're going to hook up with another group. There's one, I think I forgot something, but it's not going to come to me. There is one aspect that I admire about these people, whether it was the mountain men, the long hunters, the frontiersmen. And there's something that they had that we don't have anymore. And someone might, you know, if I'm wrong, tell me. But there's something that they have that we don't have, and that is a frontier. They could basically say, you know, F you society, I'm out here. Head west. You know, I'm going to hook up with that group. We're going over there. I may not come back. kind of thing. We really don't have that. We really cannot run and hide or check out. The only people currently that are doing that, and it's not suggested, who they've entered a different frontiers. When you see these homeless people out there, they've checked out of the system. They're still here around us and amongst us, but they're in a different frontier where they've left the social grid. You know, like I said, they're out there sitting on the curb or doing whatever they're doing, picking up cans and all that kind of thing. But I think that's, I'm not trying to draw a correlation between them and the mountain men, but as far as a frontier, we have nowhere to run to. Now, unless, like, you know, Canadian Prepper talks about Canada and some areas that are probably not very densely populated, but they're also 40 below. Not my idea of an escape. And then, you know, but you look at some of the people that just checked out that are right here. You know, just something to think about. But like I just said, they had a frontier that we don't. They had a place to run to, give it a shot on their own, and I really don't think we have that. But anyhow, I hope I made myself clear and you understood what I'm talking about as far as the mountain man weren't loners, the lone wolf idea isn't good, and if you run the Indian side of the equation, these guys are just a bunch of marauders. You might learn something from that. Anyway, have a good one.